Welcome to this video. Today we will be discussing a marriage out of community of property with the accrual regime. A couple falls in love and they plan to get married. There are three matrimonial property regimes in South Africa. The first is in community of property. What that means is when the couple gets married, there is one joint estate, meaning that you share in debts, profits, assets, money, property, everything equally. At divorce, the joint estate gets divided and each party walks away with half. If that is your intention to get married in community of property, where everything is bundled into one, then you do not enter into an antenuptial contract. If, however, you want something different, where during the marriage you have two separate estates, where what belongs to the wife before and during the marriage belongs to her, and the same applies to the husband, that would be a marriage out of community of property. However, there are two of those. The first is out of community of property without the accrual regime, and the other is out of community of property with the accrual regime. If the accrual regime does not apply during the marriage, there are two estates. The husband does what he wants to with his money and the wife the same. Should the parties divorce, he leaves with his money, she leaves with her money. However, if the accrual regime applies, then during the marriage, the exact same applies. The husband deals with his money like he wants to. The lady deals with her money and property how she wants to. However, should they divorce or one of the parties passes away, they will have to now share in the accrual, basically the growth of their respective estates, the parties will share. For example, if the husband's estate grew by, let's say, 10,000 Rand at the date of divorce, the wife would receive 5,000 Rand thereof. But in order for that to apply, the parties must enter into an antenuptial contract, which must be signed before a notary public, and that needs to take place before the marriage gets concluded. If they do not do that, then the marriage will automatically be in community of property, meaning they share everything during the marriage and at divorce, 50-50. Many people ask me, what is an antenuptial contract? In short, it is a document signed before the marriage, before a notary public. It gets registered at the deeds office, and it deals with the matrimonial property regime the parties want to apply to their specific marriage. They have options, as I mentioned earlier on, and it gets registered, as mentioned. Before you is an example of an antenuptial contract with the application of the accrual regime. As you can see from the document before you, we refer to the Matrimonial Property Act, Section 88 of 1994. The notary public's details will be inserted here before me, notary public. The couple getting married is Kate Wellington and Mark Wellington. Those are the details. They are unmarried at present. And they agree upon the following. A marriage has been agreed upon and is intended to be solemnized between them, and they have agreed and now contract with each other as follows. There shall be no community of property between the parties. There shall be no community of profit and loss between the parties. And the marriage shall be subject to the accrual system in terms of the provisions of Chapter 1 of the Matrimonial Property Act, Act 88 of 1980. Furthermore, you have to declare your commencement value. Kate says null, Mark says null. And are there any assets which the parties wants to exclude from the final calculation? So, in short, Kate can say that her current estate is worth 10,000 Rand. That will obviously have to be factored in when you determine the accrual later on. Has the estate grown? Because if it has grown, we have to calculate it from 10,000 Rand up. Obviously, with CPI and all those things. But in short, if her estate has grown by 10,000 Rand and Mark's estate has not grown at all, Mark will receive 5,000 Rand. Therefore, the net commencement value is very important. There may be certain assets which you want to exclude, for example, a property or certain investments or certain businesses. You need to include that as well. That will not form part of the equation. And then furthermore, there are further clauses that you can insert if the parties so wish. They would sign it before the notary public. Kate and Mark will sign it, and the notary public will sign it as well. And later on, it will be registered at the deeds office, and the parties can get married immediately after they sign this notary. There's no last document, the Antenuptial Contract. There you have it in short. That is how a marriage out of community of property gets started with an antenuptial contract. And in this specific example, we dealt with a situation where the parties want to get married out of community of property with the inclusion of the accrual regime. Thank you.